As the bonfire crackled, everyone sitting around it felt the warmth of its heat penetrating their skin. We sat there laughing and listening to each other's stories. Well, I have a story for you that will teach you all a lesson. Spoke up a laughter. Everybody looked at their friend and Lecter, his greasy, wavy, blonde hair slicked back like a porcupine. He smiled, threw his cigarette onto the ground, and stomped it out. It begins with 3 young men. They swear, drink, eat too much, and gamble. Now all of you know drinking is very wrong along with overeating. So sit back and listen to my tale. One day there were 3 young men sitting on bar stools in a casino having drinks. They drank so much their heads began to sway. As the booze began to take control, it led to laughing, and eventually all 3 men gambled all their money away. On this very same day, all 3 men were sitting on slots playing on their machines when one of their friends' phones gave a jingle. Their friend Buddy Luca looked over at them and said, "Guys, I have some terrible news for you." The 3 men turned around on the stools and looked at Luca. "I'm afraid that one of your buds was found dead in a ditch." The oldest of the men, Michael, yelled, "What? He is dead? How did he die?" The other 2 stood up with their friend. "He was beaten to death. They found him on 666th Street. Hey, that street is just a couple miles from here." Luca walked away as Jacob stood up and stated, "We will just have to find this person that killed our buddy and teach him a little lesson." Michael and the metal buddy Kurt nodded in agreement. They picked up their beer bottles and made their way to their car. As they drove down the street, halfway there, Jacob spoke up. "We have been going in circles, Michael. You should stop and get directions." Michael looked for a place to stop to ask for directions. Spotted a hitchhiker. Pulled over, and all 3 boys stepped out of the car. "Hey, you, do you know how to get to 666th Street? Hitchhiker grinned, his teeth all black and cracked from days of not brushing. His long dirty hair swung with the wind, blowing its stench toward the men, making them vomit all the booze that they previously drank back at the casino. Hitchhiker turned and pointed to a little path. "Right over there is a shortcut to 666th Street. Michael thanked the man, quickly rolled up his window and sped toward the path. They drove for an hour when they came upon a suspicious-looking huge casino. They pulled up in front of the casino and gasped in awe. They stepped out of the car and made their way into the casino. "It's empty," said Jacob. "More for us," replied Michael. 3 men went their separate ways. One to the slot machine, one to the poker table, one to the blackjack table. A couple of hours later, they all met up in the bar. They compared the bags of money they won and decided to order a couple of beers. "There is no beer," Kirk muttered glumly. "Not to worry, I'll run into the next town and grab some beer." Jacob piped up. He walked out to his car, started it, and made his way into town. At the liquor store, he stopped as a thought hit him like a bolt of lightning. Why share all that money with Michael and Kirk when I could take it for myself? He smiled, ran to the car, and stopped at the drugstore to grab some rat poisoning. He sat in the car, opened the beers, and poured the rat poisoning into the liquid. He sealed the beer bottle and made his way back to the casino. Meanwhile, back at the casino. "I thought we split all this money 2 ways instead of 3. How? Jacob has taken the car. We can't carry all this stuff out before he comes back, and he is probably on his way back now." Kirk replied. Michael put his hand to his head and tapped it in thought. Then a huge and creepy smile came across his face. "One of us could kill him." Kirk smiled and nodded. Jacob came back. He found Kirk sitting there looking at the money. Kirk looked up and gave Jacob a grin. "Where's Michael? I have the drinks." Jacob held up the beer. He sat the beer on the table and looked around. Suddenly there was a loud bang. Jacob looked around and saw Michael holding up a gun. Michael smiled as Jacob fell to the floor dead. He sat down beside Kirk and took a beer as Kirk took the other beer. "Toast," Michael chipped. They drank the beer, and all of a sudden their bodies began to shake, vomit, and wiggle in agony. They fell down to the floor dead. "Now, see, my friends, don't you see the moral of the story?" As they all stared at him. "Money is the root of evil," he chuckled. "Now I have a proposition for all of you. I have something that you guys will want to buy to make you have a very good time," he asked. "How about this little drug called acid?" "How dare you!" yelled Angelo. Angelo stood up and stormed over toward Lecter, grabbed his shirt, and lifted him off his feet. "How dare you sell it here? that has killed many people, if not killed, has drove them insane. He brought up his fist when a voice rang out. Angelo, cool it, man. He is a liar. He has nothing in that knapsack of his. Angelo looked again at Electra and threw him down on the ground. Don't ever sell that stuff up here. Ever. Angelo went back and took his place at the bonfire. Electra got up, shook the dirt off his pants, grabbed his knapsack and stormed off. He stood by a tree, lighted another cigarette and smiled to himself, thinking of another way to sell his wares.